So, the first key point in the Hans Zimmer artist feature is intimacy. And what I mean by this is the closeness of the sound and the clarity of the sound. Now, the sound can mean multiple things. It could mean the whole track, it could mean just the instruments, but generally, if the instruments are sounding intimate, then the whole track is going to sound intimate. And to be honest, you probably wouldn't use an intimate sound if you weren't trying to go for an intimate sound overall. So the first track I listened to was Solomon. Now, the immediate point I took from it was the intimate sound. And this was created predominantly by the initial strings. Now, these initial strings came in without anything else and was very high pitched, almost, I wouldn't say harsh, but it was high. It was just a high sounding string. Now, that was immediately an intimate sound because you felt so close to the strings. You felt that it was just you and the strings alone with nothing else around. So later on, then it progresses into something bigger. But that initial intimate sound carries through the whole track, and not only was it created with violins, it was also created with some brass that come in later, and just the overall tone of the whole piece. And I just knew at that point that was the initial key point. So that high string violin, it wasn't just playing, or to my knowledge, it wasn't just playing a sustained note. It was playing a harmonic. Now, I have thankfully got a few sample libraries that allow me to use that certain articulation, but I wouldn't say it's impossible to create the intimate sound using other things, but maybe that's another video. Either way, I'll show you what I mean by this intimate sound, and if you want any more details, really, then the article is the place to go. I've opened up BBC Symphony Orchestra, and let's go to Violins 2 Leader. Now, I go to the leader rather than just the Violins 2 because it's a singular instrument. It's not the whole section. And we want that intimacy. We want that closeness. And we're not going to get that closeness when we've got all these strings playing the same thing. There's a loss of clarity with the leader. I'm going to go and find long harmonics. And I'm just going to play a note. Because it's not perfect, because it's a harmonic, because there's slight fluctuations within the note, it feels human. It feels emotional. It's not completely computerized, because I mean, obviously it's on a computer. It could be very sample library sounding or very MIDI, I should say, really. But because it's that slight fluctuation in pitch, it brings that intimacy forward and is a really easy way of portraying that intimacy. And I'm very happy that I found these harmonics and found that it was the harmonics that he was playing, or I believe to be, rather than just a sustained string, because I don't think there's any way of making that sound using just sustained strings. If I was to switch to sustained strings now, and that's got some vibrato on it. So if I was to turn that off, it's a really nice pure sound, but it loses that emotion. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad sound at all, and that would definitely work. You could combine that with the harmonics and that would possibly sound really good. But harmonics by themselves portray the intimacy a lot better in my eyes, or at least Hans Zimmer managed to make them sound incredibly intimate, and then combined it with deeper strings and a bigger orchestra slowly, and that intimacy comes out. I strongly suggest you listen to that track and all the other tracks I list at the bottom of the intimacy section in the article. So I'm actually going to put a compressor on this just to make it louder with the makeup gain, so that you can hear it a little bit better. So you can hear the bow actually being drawn across the strings with those harmonics. And I think that's where the intimacy comes from. So there's my first key point, intimacy. That is across a lot of tracks by Hans Zimmer, and I mean, I only listened to roughly 25 tracks. I didn't listen to his whole collection, so there are probably more examples of the intimacy. But Solomon straight away provided that sound, provided that harmonic that sounded so close in my ear and so emotional that I felt that is something I don't hear often. And if you can utilise it like I can with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, I strongly recommend it. In my track that I'm working on that sounds like Hans Zimmer, or I'm trying to use the key points, the harmonics add a lot of depth, especially when you add in the low basses and the cellos and start making it a full piece. But then the harmonics really make the track intimate. So thank you for watching this first episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.